You know how I am pretty much always saying that everything ties back to brand strategy? Well, today, you don't have to just take my word for it. I have reached out to 6 amazing online service providers, all from totally different industries, and asked them to answer one question. How does brand strategy help you do your job better? Because the truth is, strategy does not just help your designer. It helps every single person that you hire in your business. Your copywriter, your VA, your social media manager, your photographer, your ads manager, your SEO strategist, and on and on and on. When your brand strategy is clear, everyone on your team can work from the same playbook, and that's when things really start to click. Your content gets more consistent, your marketing feels cohesive, and the results really start compounding. So in this episode, you're going to hear what brand strategy looks like through the lens of each of these 6 service providers, and I will jump in along the way to share my thoughts and connect some of the dots between them. Welcome to the 6-Figure Brand Podcast, where each week we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to build a 6-figure business as an online service provider. I'm your host, Morgan. I'm a branding expert, online agency owner, mom of 2, and military spouse, and I'm obsessed with helping entrepreneurs like you understand the ins and outs of branding so that you can use it to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. Whether you're just starting out or focused on scaling, we're diving into everything you need to build a profitable and sustainable online business. Let's get to it. Okay, this is going to be such a fun episode. Before we dive in, I want to give you a real fast baseline of what I'm talking about whenever I say brand strategy. Brand strategy refers to your purpose, mission, vision, values, your ideal client, your competitors, your differentiator, brand messaging and voice, and your client experience. If you want a much deeper dive into what all this means and how it looks in your business, hit pause, go search for episode 20 of the 6-Figure Brand Podcast, which is titled What Brand Strategy Actually Is and Why You Need It. Give that one a listen and then maybe pop back over here. Okay, let's dive in. First, we're going to hear from Liz. Her business is Lux and Vita, and she is a studio manager for creatives. She has a long history of being an online business manager for all sorts of businesses, so she has seen the ins and outs of how lots of different types of businesses work and don't work. So the question for Liz was, how does having a client who has actually done some brand strategy work make your job as an OBM easier and more effective? So let's hear what she had to say.
So when a client has actually done brand strategy, and I'm talking like their messaging, their voice, they know their values, they know their ideal client, they know those details that are so crucial to the client experience, it makes my job easier and it makes me guess less, because brand strategy is kind of like the manual for all the decisions you make, because it's going to set the tone for everything. It's going to actually help you run your business, get the clients, retain the clients, like all those key things that you want happening in your business. And when a client actually has clarity and actually gets a strong, solid brand strategy, and they know who they're serving, they know all of that information, then I can build systems that match that. Because if you know who you're talking to, you know your values, you know all of those details that are so key for running a business, then it's not just going to be generic best practices. It's actually going to be tailored to you. It's going to be tailored to your client, which means you're going to get a better client experience. Your clients are going to come back to you. They're going to refer people to you because they actually had a consistent experience across the board, not only visually with like the stuff that you do, but the way that you speak, the cadence of how you work, just overall business. And like when I'm building workflows for somebody, I'm going to be adding emails. And if you don't know your brand voice and you maybe haven't written all of those emails yet, a lot of times I do end up writing those emails. And it makes my life so much easier when you know your voice, because then I can match it to that. And then even with like reminder emails, do your clients need a little bit more of a nudge? Need to be just a little bit more firm? Or can we kind of keep it chill? And like, what kind of person are they? Are they someone who's super busy? And so sending them a lot of reminders is going to stress them out. Okay, cool. So now, because you know your ideal client, I can help build workflows accordingly. And then you're actually giving them a better experience because you understand them. And because I understand them, I can build something better for you. It just keeps going and going and going when you actually know all of that information. Because if you don't, I'm guessing. No one wants to hire someone and have them guess. And it's kind of on the flip side too. Like if you haven't done it, you're going to want systems, but you can't actually articulate any of like the experience that you want them to have because you don't actually know the person that you are wanting to work with, which is why it's probably chaos in the beginning anyways, which is why you're hiring someone like me. But I can't make something out of nothing. Like it's going to be so much easier when you know all of the key information in a brand strategy, and having someone do it for you. It's like they can speak even more clearly to it because they're getting inside your head, because they're getting inside your clients' heads. And it's so good. So when a client comes in, long story short, with a brand strategy already in place, it's not only easier for me, honestly, it's more profitable for you. Because we can really kind of skip the like, okay, let me like ask you 10,000 questions about, okay, well, who's your ideal client? How do you speak to them? What is your overall goal for everything? Like, you hand me your brand strategy. I'm like, cool, let's go, and done.
I love that so much. Liz touched on a couple things that I have talked about extensively on the podcast. First and foremost, how having a solid brand strategy really reduces decision fatigue. You are not having to make all those decisions over and over and over again because you have a roadmap, like Liz said. And I think the other thing too is the purpose of an OPM really is to kind of run your business for you. And so just like she illustrated, having a solid brand strategy helps them run your business more like the way that you would. I also really love what Liz said about the investment piece, right? Why are you paying somebody to work in your business when you don't even know who your ideal client is, how you sound, how you want them to feel, what your client experience should be? So if you are considering hiring OPM or even VA type support in your business, highly recommend getting your brand strategy nailed down first. Yes, as Liz mentioned, they can help you do some of that, but having it done with somebody who is truly an expert brand strategist is really going to change the game when it comes to having other people working on your behalf in your business. Next up, we've got Sam Burmeister of Nomad Copy Agency. Sam helps online service providers write words that sound like them, but convert better. So she's all about helping you write your website copy, your sales page copy, your emails, in a way that's going to actually sell, not just sound pretty. So let's hear her hot take on how brand strategy helps her to be able to do her job better.
Copy without strategy is just words on a page. It makes my job so much easier when somebody comes to me already with their strategy, because then I know what we're working with and where that person wants to go. Strategy is honestly probably just a fancy word for a plan. And if I don't know who you want to reach in the future, then I'm going straight up off of vibes when I'm writing your copy, even if we have a strategic conversation around it. So the ideal flow here would be to do strategy, then copy, then design when you're making a website, sales page, something like that. When I know what your purpose, your mission, vision, and values are, who you want to be working with, if there are any key messaging statements, I can then write to those people and write from a place of values so that people really understand who you are. Because your brand isn't just a logo. Your brand is the whole vibe that you're giving off. So when I have that information, it makes my job just so much easier. When you work with somebody before me who helps you with your strategy, it makes my job easier because we don't have to go back to the basics of your message and your strategy and who you're trying to talk to and like get all of that information out. We can start from a really centered place rather than having to take a step back before we move forward. Issues that I run into when trying to work with clients who haven't invested in strategy is that they just feel a little bit scattered and perhaps a little bit desperate. They think that copy is going to be the thing, that if I can just write better, that I'm going to be able to communicate with people and they're just going to want to buy my thing. But if you don't have that core idea of who you're talking to, how you want to talk to them, how that feeling is giving off the same feeling as everything else that goes into your sales pages and website, like your visual branding, your photography, then we're not able to all work together on your behalf. So then the website, it's new and it's fun, but it still might feel scattered if your entire team doesn't have a singular strategy to come back to. That's going to mess with your client experience and that's going to mess with your sales long term. So my best advice is to nail down your strategy, work with a strategist before you move through the rest of your project. So that means understanding what those core messages are, how your brand colors exude that message, how your copy will exude that message, how your photography will be worth 1,000 words when you do the copy that is all aligned back to your core business strategy.
So we're starting to see some common themes here between some of the things that Sam's saying, some of the things that Liz is saying. We've got the common thread of strategy is like a plan or a roadmap. And as Sam said, all of these contractors in your business can and will work with you to figure some of that out. But at the end of the day, it's not their job and that's not their genius work. So do you really want your copywriter defining your brand strategy? Probably not. I really love what Sam said about having your whole team be on the same page. So after you invest in strategy, then think about who you're going to hire afterwards. You want them all working out of the same playbook, all pointed in the same direction. Otherwise, exactly like Sam said, your copy is going to feel disjointed from your photos, from your visuals, from your marketing. And all of these things alone might be really great, but if they're not all working together, they're really not going to get you anywhere. Next up, we've got Brittany Hersberg. Her business is Copy by B, and she is an SEO strategist for online business owners. So her job, after I do your strategy and design your brand and Liz helps you run your business and Sam writes the words, is to help your website and your content actually get found by your ideal client. So let's hear Brittany's hot take on what it looks like when somebody has versus has not invested in brand strategy before they hire her.
So I start off asking every single client about who they help, how they help them, and what they want to be known for. The people who've done a brand strategy, they got it. They deeply understand their ideal client, their differentiator, and client experience. Their message is clear and their brand voice is super obvious. They have all of it nailed down and we're able to get to work super fast, which I love. The ones who haven't spent time on a brand strategy, they don't. They don't know their people, their projects tend to get to be off to a slower start because they need the time to get clear on those answers. And I just will not move forward on keyword research without those answers, full stop. So I'd say if you want to focus on SEO in the near future, definitely take the time, either solo or working with someone like Morgan, to get crystal clear on your purpose, your mission, your ideal client, and UVP, and the experience that you know you're so good at delivering to clients. If you can come to an SEO strategist with that kind of insight, it's much easier for us to dive into your project and give you solid keywords and really strategic SEO strategies to make your site super findable by those ideal, incredibly aligned clients. But I'd say the biggest issue I face when working with clients who have not invested in their brand strategy is that I'm not able to just jump into researching keywords for them. It takes longer to get the project going and to identify and articulate what they're all about. They have to take the extra time to get clear on who they help, how they help them, and what they want to get found for. And it's okay, we will take the time to find those answers, but it's just so much easier to have someone come in and be able to rattle off or copy and paste those answers from a document. And that keeps the momentum high for both of us as we get into SEO, which is really, really important because SEO can be a heavy, dense, confusing thing for a lot of business owners. But when they've got this brand strategy and they know what makes them stand out in their industry and they are so connected to their ideal client, the light bulbs just go off and it's so much fun to watch. And I'd say there are far fewer modifications done to SEO strategies when someone has a brand strategy ready to go. Again, because they are so freaking locked in on their person, and how they as a service provider are different and what they're all about. So it just makes things much more efficient, which is, it's kind of a love language of mine.
I really love this straight to the point, no nonsense answer. And that's also very indicative of how Brittany runs her business, which I also love. But yeah, to get straight to the point, you're going to waste a ton of time working with any other service provider if you haven't invested in brand strategy first. You will notice that everyone we've heard from so far mentions that asking questions about brand strategy is part of their intake process. And if you can't answer those questions thoughtfully and accurately, you're going to slow things down, which is a bummer when you're paying somebody to do work in your business. You don't want to hand over thousands of dollars for SEO only to then have Brittany tell you, well, we really need to do some of this foundational strategy work before I can even touch SEO on your website. So I've said it before and I will say it again, strategy saves time. Next, we're going to hear from Kira Goff. She is a brand photographer based in Colorado Springs. She helps business owners elevate their visual presence so that they can show up more consistently and more confidently online. Brand photography is absolutely one of the most important parts of your brand As a brand designer and a website designer, I cannot overstate the importance of having really solid, authentic brand photos that convey your brand strategy, your messaging, your values. So let's hear what Kira has to say about how important brand strategy really is when it comes to getting your brand photos.
I absolutely love this topic because I've seen firsthand how much easier and more effective a brand session becomes when a client has already invested into their brand strategy first. When someone comes to me with a clear brand strategy, meaning they know their purpose, their mission, their values, and who their audience is, everything clicks into place so much faster. It helps me craft images that don't just look good, but actually work for their business. For example, when a client understands their differentiator or their messaging tone, I can help translate that visually through color, posing, locations, wardrobe, and even facial expressions. If their brand voice is bold and energetic, we might shoot in a vibrant downtown space with lots of movement. If it's calm, high-end, and refined, we'll lean more towards neutral backgrounds, intentional posing, and a little bit more of an editorial feel. Essentially, their brand gives me the creative direction I need to make every image intentional. It allows me to focus on storytelling, not just guesswork, and that's really where the magic happens. On the flip side, when clients haven't done any brand strategy work, it's kind of like building a house without blueprints. They often come in saying things like, I just need some nice headshots, but they haven't defined what they want those photos to communicate, so there's nothing to help them stand out from every other static headshot that you see online. Sometimes after a session like that, I realize that the images don't actually fit their website or align with their messaging, not because the photos aren't beautiful, but because the brand story wasn't defined yet in the first place. That's why I encourage my clients to do some level of brand strategy work first, whether that's with a professional strategist or at least through some questions that I try to ask before the session to help them work through it. When you take the time to do this work, the results are so much stronger. The photos connect, they convert, and they truly represent you and the amazing service. In short, brand strategy is the bridge between beautiful photos and effective photos. It gives your creative team, your designer, copywriter, marketer, or your photographer the clarity to bring your vision to life in a way that's cohesive and powerful.
I think Kira really nailed it when she said brand strategy is the bridge between beautiful photos and effective photos. I can attest that every single photo that Kira takes is gorgeous, but you can tell a difference between people who really understand what the message they're trying to convey and the vibe that they're trying to give versus people that haven't thought about that. And exactly like Kira said, it really sucks when you haven't done this work and then you spend thousands of dollars on a brand photo shoot only to realize at the end that these photos actually aren't going to really work for your website, or they don't really match with how we want your visuals to work, or they just don't really communicate anything. So brand photography is a huge monetary investment, but it's also a lot of time and energy. A lot of us don't really want to get all dolled up and go have photos taken of us all day. So do the strategy work ahead of time to make that investment as effective as possible. Next up, we've got Megan, the founder of Candid Social. She is an Is your brand feeling a little off? Like your visuals, messaging, and your overall vibe just are not lining up with where your business is headed? You probably don't need another pretty logo. You actually need a solid strategy behind your brand. That's exactly what we'll build together inside the Standout Brand Strategy session, a one-on-one deep dive into your brand foundation so that you can finally show up with clarity, consistency, and confidence. And if you're thinking about working with Spect & Co. on branding or web design, this is your first step for every single project that we do together. Clients who have gone through this process have tripled their audience size, doubled their revenue, and raised their rates by 30% or more. Use the link in the show notes to book your session, and don't forget to enter code SFBPOD at checkout to save $100. Instagram manager and really a excellent social media marketer. So you're going to hear in her answer a lot of common themes that we've already touched on, and I think that's really great reinforcement. So let's dive in.
I love it when clients come to me for social media marketing and they've already previously done brand strategy and have their brand visuals and all the things done. And the reason why is it just makes my job so much easier. When you know as a business owner who you're targeting, what you offer, and what your core values are and your identity as a whole, it makes the messaging for marketing so much clearer because the foundation is very solid. Honestly, if you come to me to work together and you haven't done any brand strategy work, you're probably not a good candidate for social media management because your business isn't ready to hand over to someone else. You can't delegate marketing your business and a service and a message if you don't know the foundation of your message. We can't hit the ground running quickly because I have to do a lot of research and figure out a lot of foundational brand strategy pieces instead of just moving straight to the social media strategy.
Yeah, I love that Megan was so unapologetic about saying, honestly, if you don't have a solid brand strategy, you're probably not ready to work with a social media manager. And here's the thing, social media management is, again, a really big investment, but it also takes a long time to see results. So in addition to how Megan said, if you hire her without brand strategy, you really can't hit the ground running because she's having to figure out some of that for you, which again, not her job, not her zone of genius. But you also already should expect for it to take 3 to 6 months to see any sort of real tangible results for your social media. Now you're adding more time onto that. You're going to be paying her, a couple $1,000s every month for 6, 7, 8, 9 months before you see a result. When if you had just taken the time to work on your brand strategy first, you could have sped up that process quite a bit and allowed her to do her job so much more efficiently and effectively. And finally, we're going to hear from Heather Aaron. She is a meta ads strategist. And I think this one is so important because paid advertising is just that. You are paying for every single ad placement, every single click you get to your website. So you really want to make that work as efficiently as possible for you. And Heather's going to tell us how brand strategy can help you do that.
So as a meta ad strategist, it really makes my job so much easier when a client comes to me and they have actually worked on their brand strategy. This helps mostly with messaging. So we want to make sure that we have very, very clear messaging before we run ads, because ads are just going to amplify what you're putting out there. And if you're putting something out there that's confusing and messy, you're just going to get back confusing and messy results. So you want to make sure your messaging and your voice is very clear. How you're showing up is really clear to people. You just want to make sure that you're putting things out there that are going to stop the scroll when people see the ad. And then you want to put out copy that's really clear, that's going to resonate with the people who have stopped the scroll. It also helps you with targeting. So if you don't know who you're speaking to, I'm not going to know who to show your ads to. So your messaging kind of dictates the targeting. And then it's easier for me to get your ads in front of the right people. And then also everything just stays consistent. So a lot of times people have ads that show up one way and then they have a sales page that looks another way. And you really need to have consistency so that when people reach your sales page after they've clicked through on the ad, they're not confused and they're not like, well, this looks different than what I expected when I clicked on that ad. So then they leave and then you don't get that conversion. And it's just messy all around. Top issues that I see when a client hasn't invested in brand strategy is you get no traction. So there's constant shifting. You're always trying to figure it out. You're sure exactly who you're talking to. You're never sure on your offer, your pricing, your messaging. Things just keep changing. I did work with somebody like this and it was nearly impossible for me to gain any traction with this person's ads because I couldn't really build out an ad strategy because things kept shifting. So, I would build out an ad strategy, I would get everything ready, and then it was like, well, now we're doing this instead. And I was wasting my time because this person was wasting their time, and it was just a big waste of time. And I would have to constantly go back and change things. And that was really frustrating for everyone involved. And it was really leading to very weak performance in the ads. So I can get you strong results if you have a strong brand strategy. If you have a very messy foundation, your ads can get clicks and people can land on your page, but they're not actually going to follow through. So you have to have that very clear brand strategy so that you have that clear messaging. People know exactly what you're talking about, and then it resonates with them. And then they land on that page, and then they take the action that you want them to take. So it all starts with the brand strategy.
I loved Heather's little quote about ads amplify. So if you are putting something out there that's great and really well thought out, then your ads will amplify that. And if you are putting something out there that is not so great and not very well thought out, unfortunately, your ads are going to amplify that also. And additionally, her point about targeting, right? Targeting is all about your ideal client. And every single person we've heard from has mentioned when you don't know your ideal client, it makes my job really, really difficult. SEO, same thing. Photography, same thing. Copy, same thing. Social media, same thing. OBM strategy, to Liz's point about how much support and handholding do they need? All of that, including ads, centers so heavily around your ideal client. And that is truly the bulk of the work that we do whenever we're talking about brand strategy. Whenever you invest in ads before you've nailed down your brand strategy, for one, I think that those are the people who then say, oh, ads don't work for me. Well, yeah, because exactly like Heather said, you're constantly changing everything. You don't know who you're talking to, and you're basically just throwing money at Meta with no plan at all. Of course, they're not going to work for you. So if you are if you're curious about using ads to market your business, I would say 100% do it and talk to Heather, but make sure your brand strategy is nailed first. So as you can see, the really common thread here between all 6 of these highly skilled service providers that we've heard from is that first and foremost, not having a brand strategy wastes a ton of time. None of them are able to hit their ground running and really truly dig into your project with them until you have your brand strategy nailed. Secondly, it makes their job so much harder because either you're missing pieces or they're having to figure out some of that strategy for you, which I've said this already, is not their job. Like, you would not come to me and say, oh, well, could you just figure out what words to put on my website? Absolutely not. That's not what I do. So why would you expect a copywriter or an ad strategist or a social media manager or what have you to just, figure out some stuff for your brand strategy? So whenever I say that brand strategy heavily impacts every other contractor that you bring into your business or every other team member that you hire, this is exactly what I mean. Thanks for tuning in to the 6-Figure Brand Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to rate the show and leave a review on whatever app you're listening on. And as a thank you, I'll send you coffee on me. Yes, I'm serious. As a smaller show for now, you taking the time to do this makes a huge impact on how we can reach more people and how I can continue to create this content for free. When you take a screenshot of your review, follow and tag me on Instagram at @SpectandCo. I'll send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes for any links or resources I mentioned during the episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week.